Spotlight, a series where we showcase incredible local entrepreneurs and share how the AB Tech Small Business Center helps turn ideas into thriving businesses. I'm Jill Sparks. I'm the Executive Director of the Small Business Center and Business Incubation Program at AB Tech, and we are thrilled to feature a partner and friend of the Small Business Center, Veronica Edwards, founder of Balance Virtually. Veronica is a CPA, QuickBooks ProAdvisor, and fractional CFO who has built a fully cloud-based business accounting practice serving businesses across Western North Carolina and beyond. She's also the host of the Veronica Edwards Show and a passionate advocate for financial literacy. So Veronica, oh wow, thank you for joining us, especially as we are starting tax season.
Yes.
So we are incredibly lucky to have you here, and a few other things that are going to be happening with you involved. And before we get started, I want to thank my teammates, Dwayne Adams, our Associate Director, who is responsible for all of this, behind the scenes production, editing, filming, setting up the room, and then Daphne Carson, our SBC specialist. I am privileged, lucky, and honored to be working with such a trifecta. Or maybe not those two people. How about that? So let's get started. So again, Veronica, a CPA, we have worked with her, our clients have worked with her, and she is soon going to be leading a series of financial seminars during Black History Month, which is just a few weeks away, designed to empower entrepreneurs with practical tools for success. Today, we'll dive into her journey from corporate accounting, private accounting, and explore the services Balance Virtually offers and learn why financial education is such a critical part of building communities and building a solid foundation for anyone's business. So we'll go ahead and dive in. Tell us about your journey from earning a master's in accounting to working at PwC, which is one of the big four, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Newell Rubbermaid, and Milwaukee Electric Tool, and ultimately founding your own business.
Oh my God. First of all, thank you, Jill, for all of that. If this doesn't work out at the Small Business Center, you definitely have a job moderating. What is that? Something broadcasting, whatever the term
Public
is. Public broadcasting, all the things. But yes, so thank you so much. I'm also impressed, Jill, that you know what the Big Four is, because a lot of people don't know about the Big Four accounting firms. So when I graduated from UNC Charlotte in the year 2004, and then I went and got my master's at Georgia Southern in 2005. I had an internship with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and the way it worked back in the day is that you had to have enough hours to sit for the CPA exam to work for PricewaterhouseCoopers. So they said, okay, we'll let you intern after I graduated from college, undergrad, and they said, pending you getting your master's, which only took a year, then we will hire you after that. So I was fortunate, as I call it, I went to the 13th grade in college because I just had to do 1 year in college, got my master's. It was just 30 credit hours that I needed, and it felt great to be working for one of the Big Four, one of the four largest accounting firms in the world, PricewaterhouseCoopers. So we consider it based on busy seasons. So I worked 3 busy seasons, and then I got on up out of there. Usually people last like 2 or 3 years. So I was very impressed when Jill was sharing with me that she has close friends and family members that have been with Big Four firms for years. I'm envious of anybody that's been in corporate for more than 5 years. I don't think I've ever had a job, you guys, more than 3 to 4 years. I always kind of moved on to the next opportunity. And so that's how you so eloquently said, I worked for Newell Rubbermaid and I worked for Milwaukee Electric Tool. It all started with PricewaterhouseCoopers because I was able to get such a great experience working with publicly traded companies. It really taught me the proper etiquette of how to talk to an executive director, how to talk to a CFO. When they knew I just graduated from college and I didn't know what the heck I was talking about, and they knew that, and they would mess with you and they would do different stuff, and I would have to go back to my manager and I'm like, well, they told me they don't have that, and they're like, they're messing with you. And then I would go back and they would laugh. But it helped me have a tough skin. And it also taught me time is money. And they would tell me, Veronica, I don't care if you got to go back there 4 or 5 times. Your hourly rate is way too high for you to be trying to figure it out. So that was a very huge learning lesson. Is I was taught very early on, no question is a stupid question. And if you have questions, it doesn't matter if you have 4 or 5 questions, just ask it, because I rather get it right on the front end. And definitely dealing with accounting, it could be very expensive if you make a mistake. So my time with PricewaterhouseCoopers was amazing. Worked with cream of the crop people from all over the world, and then that led me to saying, okay, well, now this was a grind. I was working about 60 to 70 hours a week, but it was a great experience. And then I moved on to Newell Rubbermaid, and then from Rubbermaid I worked with folks that asked me to work with them at Milwaukee Electric Tool. So my career kind of started where I was in cost accounting, manufacturing accounting. So I was a plant controller, I was in financial planning and analysis. I always was the person that dealt with the auditor, and I used to be an auditor, so I had a different relationship, because most people, when the auditor comes, they don't like them. I like the auditors. I'm like, they're going to show me that I'm doing my job right. I didn't look at it that it was, oh, they're going to find something wrong. Because I knew as an auditor, I don't want to find anything wrong, Jill, because that means that's more work and documentation for me. So just so you guys know, auditors, we just want it to be easy. We don't want to make it hard. We don't get a bonus if we find something wrong with the audit. And so I started moving through different companies, big companies, and I just found that the common denominator was me. You know, I thought, well, if I go to this company, they're going to treat me different. If I go to this company, I'll have different experiences. But for me, I just realized I wasn't a cookie cutter corporate person. And then I had an amazing experience where I worked for a small business owner. So now we're getting to like maybe 10 years after I left PricewaterhouseCoopers, I'm working for a small business owner, but it was like a small business accounting firm. And so I kind of liked that, but then I didn't like how she was kind of treating some of the accountants. So I was like, well, maybe I could do this on my own. And then I worked for a African-American small business owner in Greenville, South Carolina, before I moved to Asheville. And I said, well, if he can do it, I know I could do it. And he was a very intelligent engineer, but he wasn't business minded. And I was like, okay, so it really doesn't matter what the business is. I just need to really understand the flow of business. And so that's when I started kind of getting the itch for a business. So this was back like maybe 2014, 2015. But I'm a corporate girl. So what brought me to Asheville is I was working for a company out in Canton, and I was the plant controller, and I was making the most money I ever made, Jill. I was supervising all these people, and I was miserable. My son, who's now 10, he was 1 at the time.
Oh boy.
He wasn't potty trained. I was never home a lot. I just felt like a crappy mom. But I also felt like I was a crappy employee, because when I was at work, I wanted to be home. When I was home, I knew I needed to do work. So that started tugging at me. And so in 2017, I said, I'm going to open up a business bank account. So that's my rule number 1 for small business owners. If you open up a business account with your business name, you got a business.
And let's say that one more time for our viewers here about opening a separate business checking account and not commingling those funds.
Yes, I will not be your accountant if you commingle your funds. So you can start off commingled, and then when I meet you, I'll say, okay, your first step is whoever you bank with personally, open up a business account. The only banks that don't have business accounts are your state employee credit unions. Outside of that, you can get a business bank account. And that's what I did. I banked with Wells Fargo, and I opened up a business bank account, and they had a special where if I opened up an account and I put $250 in, they would put another $250 in. So just like that, I had $500 in a business bank account, but I had no clients. I didn't know anybody really in Asheville or Western North Carolina, because since I moved, I was just going to work, working like 12 hours a day, and we moved here in 2016.
Wow.
And so I think I lasted 15 months at that job, and at the time, my sister died by suicide.
Oh,
so it took a life-changing, heart-wrenching thing for me to realize I'm not happy in life, and the main reason I'm not happy is because I'm at a job that isn't feeding me. It's not feeding my soul. I'm not with my family. I'm not with my friends. And so my sister passed in November 2017. I gave that company my notice January 2018, and they did not take my 2-week notice, and I was like, that's fine, I will leave today. And that's how I knew, like, this was the right choice for me. And I've interviewed quite a few people, because I do have the Veronica Edwards show, which we'll talk about, and a lot of times you're forced into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
It's either you're at a job that you probably knew for a long time you shouldn't be at, but you needed the money, or whatever the situation was. But it forced me that I had to choose happiness. And I think it took something as drastic as my sister passing away for me to realize that life is short, and I'm in control of my destiny, and I need to, move forward and not feel stuck in a 9-to-5 job.
Well, absolutely. And in hindsight, and we hear this all the time, I moved from this job to this job because you're gaining skills, and all of that is to help you when you do start a business, even though maybe at the time you don't know that.
Yeah.
And so it's so courageous, and life kind of, hey,
Yes.
we knew you were going to do this.
Yes.
You just need to know that you're going to do this. So, I love that. And with all that experience in the different types of accounting scenarios, how lucky your clients are to have you to help them. And you probably have noticed this. People, do not be afraid of numbers, okay?
Yeah,
that is probably
numbers.
the biggest thing. Force yourself to look at your books and your money and your numbers every day, and then it will not be so scary.
Yes.
Because if we naturally love that, we would all be accountants.
Exactly.
But we aren't. We're doing our craft. So,
Yes.
And just your personality and your warmth. Accounting can be scary for people, and bookkeeping, and sometimes, as brutally honest, I think is something you have on your website. It may not be good information, but that not acknowledging it is not going to make it disappear.
It's like anything in life. It's like you cannot bury your head in the sand.
Yes.
It's going to keep coming up to the surface. So in accounting, like anything, I say if you have a budget, if you have a clear plan, it helps you make better decisions. And I think people just don't want to deal with the accounting, but accounting is the language of business. You got to deal with it.
Yes, the language of business. And I'm looking at my notes, and we've already gone through question number 2. And I do have to say, you mentioned you went to Georgia Southern for your master's. Well, as an App State graduate, I just have to acknowledge, even though I do not want to acknowledge the football team this year at App State. So hopefully, fingers crossed there, and for the basketball team. So anyway, let's get back. But when you said Georgia Southern, it's like, but that's good. We love Georgia Southern.
Both are party schools. Both are party schools. We had a good time at Georgia Southern.
So very good. Well, since you have started Balance Virtually, what core values or guiding principles do you have for your business?
I would say the core of Balance Virtually is education. That's the biggest compliment that I get from people, is that they say, Veronica, you make accounting seem understandable, not overwhelming. So we're all about integrity, clarity, and empowerment. But it's all wrapped into education. So a lot of times, like you'll see, when I'll do the courses here at the Small Business Center, I'll tell people, you're not going to really understand QuickBooks until you understand accounting. That's why a lot of people feel defeated with QuickBooks, or it's so overwhelming. Well, it's just a software. They can change how the interaction and how it looks, but a debit is still a debit, a credit is still a credit, and you have to understand the basics of accounting. So I like to teach people that. If I'm working with you, I'm going to go over your financials, like you said, every month. We're going to reconcile your books every month. We're going to look at your profit and loss statement and your balance sheet every single month, because I always give the analogy, your business is your baby. Do you just check up on your baby when you get progress reports from the teacher or the babysitter, or are you knowing everything intimately about your child? And that's what you should know. You don't have to be the accountant to understand your business, just like with your child. You don't have to be the doctor, you don't even have to be the cook, you don't have to be the teacher, but you're the parent, you're the advocate, and you want to make sure that you have the right people in place that can make your child and your business successful.
Oh, that is a great analogy. And as you educate your clients, they do better on their own with the bookkeeping and accounting, and that helps your job, and it saves money.
Yes, and if I'm doing a good job, you don't have me forever. Some people, I've transitioned out of doing recurring bookkeeping. I will come in, I'll clean up your books this time of the year because it is good money, and then I'll teach you how to maintain it, or I have other accountants that I work with that can maintain your books. But absolutely, you gotta be involved in your books. I look at my bank account every day.
Yep. That's it. Look at your bank account every day. Well, how then would you describe your ideal client?
Ooh, I would say an ideal client is someone that is open, that's teachable, and that understands the importance of accounting. Because I tell people all the time, if you're a business owner, you need to know your value, because I don't negotiate my price. My price is my price.
Yes.
And if you don't see the value in what I'm providing, that's fine. I'm not the right person for you. If you don't show up to meetings on time, I might not be the right person for you. If you're not paying consistently on time, I can look at your financials and tell you, Jill, I want to help you, but you can't afford my services right now. I think it might be best if you go to the Small Business Center or some of these other resources where there are free services. But until you get to a certain point. So I have found that most of my recurring clients are already typically established, or they're already in at least the 6-figure range with revenue. Because of the 20 years of experience I have, not everybody can afford the rate. So that's why I do like to provide coaching at Mountain BizWorks, coaching here through other organizations, because it's subsidized. Folks can afford it, because I do want to give back. But as you guys will learn in business, you have to look at how much you can give and then how much that you need to charge, because a hobby, you don't get paid. Right. But a business, you want to make a profit. So it's just trying to find that balance. But an ideal client to me, as long as you could be a for-profit, a nonprofit, but just be teachable, be open, and of course have the cash flow. But that's usually just it. And it has to be a mission that I'm aligned with. I usually don't work with people that don't treat their staff well. I don't really get into the politics and the religion. I'm just more so about how you treat overall folks and how relevant you are in the community. How are you giving back to the community?
Good. Well, you offer such a robust array of services. What services are small business owners surprised they need? Yes, I need this and this, but oh wow, yes, Veronica came in and I need this and had no idea.
A lot of folks focus mostly on their profit and loss statement, which is your revenue and your expenses, because that's what you're taxed on, what's left over, what's exceeding the expenses. But a lot of people don't do as much cash forecasting. Because you can spend cash and it not be an expense on your profit and loss statement. It could be paying back a loan that's on your balance sheet. It could be an investment, a gift someone gave you. So I tell folks, you gotta look at your cash, not just your revenue. There's a difference between cash and revenue. So that's where on both sides, you can't just look at revenue and you can't just look at cash. So as much as I do look at my bank account every day, cash is just one account in multiple accounts in your chart of accounts for your business. So I do find a lot of people do not forecast their cash, they're not budgeting, and also they're not planning for long-term pension planning, which we have for small businesses, estate, will, things like that. So long-term planning for sure. And as small business owners, we usually don't have succession planning.
Yes, that is big. So succession planning, and really when we work with clients who are just starting a business, we need to ask that question. What is your exit plan? What is your succession plan? Because all of that goes into forecasting and strategic planning. So
absolutely.
I do have to share a small story about accounting. I have a BA in history, and when I earned at App State, and I wanted to delay graduation, so I decided it was a very acceptable thing to take accounting as an elective. Okay.
Oh wow.
And I had 100 average in the class, but really accounting, as you said, is just history of numbers.
Yes,
that is why it was easy for me, because it's the history of numbers, what you have done in the past. And with this fractional CFO, let's look forward, because you really have to look both.
Yes, and I want to add the fractional piece is because people are like, what does that mean? You can have fractional all kind of things. It just means I'm not I'm not going to burden a business with a full-time fractional CFO, which is 6 figures. But if I'm just coming in partially, part of the time, I've had clients where I've trained their business accountant and, their office accountant there, and now I'm reviewing the books with them. Now I might only be 10 or 20% of the cost versus if you had me in your office 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And that's what I learned too, especially we saw during COVID. We're not working that long, so half the time we're talking, we're at the water cooler, we're having lunch, we're in meetings, but then I'm only spending 3 or 4 hours actually doing the work. And so once you cut out all that fluff, it's like, okay, let me just charge you for the times that we're meeting, the times that I'm reviewing, and that I'm really adding value to the business. So I recommend fractional COOs, chief operating officers, fractional HR folks, fractional marketing, and fractional accounting. Because again, you're in the business, like you said, you don't have time to do all the things. So I have a person that helps me with social media. I have a person that helps me with producing my show because that is not my skill set, Jill. So I rather kind of let them produce it. I'll give all the ideas, but I don't have enough time in the day. And when you're a solopreneur, you need to have partners that you work with.
Absolutely. Oh gosh. Well, and since you mentioned the podcast, what inspired you to create and host the Veronica Edwards Show?
Yeah, similar to entrepreneurship, I never even thought about having a podcast, a radio show. Growing up, I always got the comments on my report card. Very intelligent, but very talkative. I was always talking and cracking jokes and doing all the things in class. And so my aunt would always say, you need to be a news reporter. Like the older people, like, you need to be on the news because you're friends with everybody, you know what's going on, aka busybody. But I was at a networking event that the Asheville Chamber had back in 2018. So I remember I left the company like January. There was a mega networking event at the Holiday Inn up the street. They do it twice a year. And it was like $70 or $80, which was a lot of money for me starting my business to attend this event. But it was like 100 people there, and you did your elevator pitch about 15 times because there was like 10 tables and 8 people are at each table. And I would get up, hi, I'm Veronica Edwards. I'm the owner of Balance Virtually and I provide these services, and then you pass your business card and then the next person does their speech. But once you hit all the tables, there's someone different at every table. I met someone that was starting Biz Radio, Matt Matan.
Oh, yes.
I know you guys know Matt.
Yes.
Everybody knows Matt. And he asked me to be on this new station, and he wanted me just to be a guest on a show. And he goes, Veronica, you're really good. Why don't we do a 6-week segment?
Oh, wow.
And you just come back. And again, it was just me kind of talking about accounting, but on his show. And he was recording in Swannanoa.
Yes.
And so this was like maybe like 2018, 2019. And I was like, you know what, Matt, I love doing this, but I'm not getting paid, and I really need to focus in on the business. Because at that point, I was just getting by. I've cashed out my 401ks, my savings, all that fun stuff. Then COVID hit. And he goes, okay, Veronica, we're putting it online. You don't have to worry about sponsors because I hate asking people for money. And so he was like, let's just do it. So we started in 2021, and it was an online radio station, and it had multiple folks. One of my friends, Joanna Haggerty, also a friend.
Gosh, it's
So
a small world. We know everybody. That's
Joanna.
great.
She was on there also. Also, Tori White Garrison. She's a client of mine. She's the executive director for RSAA, Reparation Stakeholder Authority of Asheville. So I started meeting these people, not knowing that we would work together years later. So long story short, start with him 2021. Hurricane Helene hits. We lose the sponsors for Biz Radio. But at that point, people have been telling me, Veronica, you're just doing audio. You should do YouTube. And that just horrified me. I was like, okay, I just got used to hearing my voice. I don't know if I want to see myself and hear myself. And then Helene happened, and I was like, well, I got to find a producer. Well, my producer, Matt's son, was like, Veronica, Aaron, I can help you. And then I had a young lady that was already helping me, Jylan Farr, with my social media. She's like a niece to me for my business. So we were like, well, we can just shift it to this show. So that started March of 2025.
Wow.
So all of that. I know that was a long story. But yeah, so that's how I got into radio.
Well, and I just want to mention, it's January 2018. You've quit your job.
Yes.
You've started a new business, and
Yep.
there's a mega networking event. Okay?
Yes.
For a lot of people, That's not a fun thing.
No.
Not to even think about going.
Yes.
At one point, that would have made me just vomit, and I would not have gone, or if I did, I'd go hide in the bathroom.
Yes.
And so, however, the importance, you laid it out.
Yes.
I went, I practiced my pitch.
Yes.
Regardless of how you felt,
Yes.
and then you met people who were instrumental
Yes.
in helping you in a variety of ways.
Absolutely.
And that, folks, is how it works.
Because you're right. Like, a lot of people's like, oh, Veronica, you're bubbly, you're outgoing, but that's a lot. And I never even thought about the chamber because I'm a corporate girl. And so it was, again, speaking things out loud. That's why I tell people, you got to tell people what you want to do or it's not going to happen. You'll be surprised the people that's in the rooms with you that are like, oh, I can introduce you to this person, or I think that this is an idea. So I'm talking to my best friend who worked for the Greenville Chamber, because remember I used to live in Greenville, South Carolina, and she goes, because at this point my sister just passed away, I'm not working, probably didn't realize at the time, probably depressed, all kind of stuff. I'm not going outside really. And she's like, how are you going to start your business if you're not networking? And I was like, well, I don't know what to do. And she goes, why don't you look up your local chamber and see what events they have? So I looked it up and I was like, well, it's $45 if you're a chamber member, but it's $80 if you're not. She's like, pay the $80. It's a business expense, which it was. And I met the ED for the Spark Foundation, who I'm the treasurer for now, Jackie Latek for the Spark Foundation. I met Matt Matan for the radio station now all these years later. And I also met one of my first clients, which it was just to convert them from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online, but I still have a copy. It was just like $50, but my aunt says, you always save your first check. Oh. And so I took a photocopy of the check, and I will always remember that, but it started there. It just started with me not knowing what to do and just going out on faith and just talking to people, and people kind of guided me along the way.
Well, and when you go to these events, nothing will happen if you don't do anything. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to put yourself out there. And you're going to hear a lot of no's, but that one yes is going to just break the gates open. And if our listeners are having challenges, Shonda Rhimes wrote a great book about saying yes for a whole year. She always said no, and her sister's like, you always say no. Why can't you say yes? And so when you're relaying this story, I immediately thought of, people say yes and see what happens. So
absolutely.
All right, well, we got a few more questions here. What's your approach to delivering financial education this is from your website, interactive, practical, and unapologetically honest?
Yes. I try to meet people where they are, and so I try to tailor all of my classes to the audience. So sometimes I have classes for construction folks. Sometimes I have classes for small business owners, sometimes for people that haven't even started a business yet. So I always like to know my audience, and I always start off my classes just kind of like a little icebreaker. What do you want to learn out of the class? Tell me a little bit about you, because I do feel that we learn better once we know each other's journeys, and now it's a little bit more personable. So that's where I like to make it to where, yes, I'm Veronica the CPA, but I tell people all the time, if I can do it, you can do it. It's just listening, it's hard work, and it's consistency. That's all you have to have. It's just you can't quit. Like you said, you're going to fail multiple times before you get to success, but you got to fail first.
That's right, consistency. And all this is teeing you up for the next question. You'll be facilitating a series of financial workshops during next month, Black History Month. Can you tell us a little bit about the themes and topics that you're covering in person? Folks?
I just want to thank you guys, because this is my first time doing a series in person. Anyone that knows me, I'm balanced virtually, so I don't come outside a lot, but I do like the small business center. So we are going to be talking about best practices for all small business owners. We're going to be talking about QuickBooks Online, which I know they had a huge change in the last few months, so everyone is cursing at QuickBooks, but it gives me job security. So I'm like, don't fret. I can help you. I can provide you some customer service. We're going to talk about budgeting and forecasting, some of that fractional CFO stuff. And then also job costing and project management and tracking and things like that. Because QuickBooks has been going up in their pricing, but they do provide a lot of bells and whistles for small business owners. So we're going to talk about, like we mentioned before, not commingling your funds, making sure that you reconcile your books monthly, making sure you're looking at your financials on a monthly basis, talking about best practices within QuickBooks for bookkeeping, but just best practices for bookkeeping in general, keeping up with receipts, making sure you're taking copies of your checks when you have deposits, because your bank might not always have those carbon copies, and just really making sure that you have enough, standard operating procedures in place that if something happened to you, someone could at least figure it out, like what was going on in your business.
Standard operating procedures, SOPs.
SOPs.
Well, and these seminars and workshops are offered at no cost to folks.
Amazing.
And to register to learn more about these seminars, I think the first one is February 3rd or 4th, maybe.
Yes, the 3rd.
3rd. Okay, so abtech.edu/SBC, that's for Small Business Center, and just look at seminars, and we'll say that website again in a moment. We've got 2 more questions, and then this has been so fun. And what financial trends or opportunities should Asheville area entrepreneurs watch for in 2026, especially around budgeting, forecasting, and cash flow?
I would definitely say have a budget.
Yeah.
It's like not even as much of a trend. I'm surprised how many people don't budget, Jill. And a budget doesn't have to be every month, every single line item, but at least you start with your sales. You got to know what's in the pipeline, because you'll have people saying, I'm going to make $1 million next year. And I'm like, that is wonderful. How are you going to do it?
Right.
Well, I got this. And I'm like, have you talked to this person? Do you have a contract? Like start talking some of that business talk, and then it kind of slows down. It's like, well, maybe I'm going to make $100,000, and that's still good. But a budget is a clear plan. So I'm finding that more people are asking me for more finance stuff, not as much accounting. They want me to help them with planning for, like I was saying, retirement, succession planning. So that is something that I am kind of dipping my toe in that part of the pond, because I do want to get a little bit more experience with the financial advisement. I'm getting more people that they're seeing the state of the economy, and things aren't going down, they just keep going up. So we want to make sure that people are making the best use of their money. I tell people all the time, just because you work for yourself, I have my own health and wellness plan. I'm going to be starting up a pension plan. You can do all these things being a small business, and you can invest in you and not wait for a company to invest in you, which they take a lot of that away when you're not working with them anymore. So definitely I'm finding the trend 2026 is invest in you. And investing in you is saving, budgeting, and planning for the future.
Oh, that is great. That is spot on. Well, continuing to look ahead, what developments or future offerings, in addition to this, do you plan to have through your media platform?
Well, this year we are definitely looking for sponsors, Small Business Center, if you want to be anyone listening. But for the platform, we want to interact more. So I want to do more in person, possibly Veronica Edwards show. I've been getting people approaching me about talking about how to start a podcast, and just encouraging folks to do that, because it's really not that complicated, and just wanting to provide more workshops and seminars. Because I'm not doing as much one-on-one bookkeeping, I find like if I can get a group of 20 people, then they can teach 20 people, and they can teach 20 people. So it's just that saying, like, I can teach you how to fish, you'll always be able to eat. So that's what I want to do more of, because I want to work smarter, not harder. I am getting older. I know don't look past 21, Jill, but your girl's getting older, and I'm planning for retirement too. And so you look fabulous, Jill. And so that's where I definitely this year I've been making good strides, but now I just want to be more intentional. I think that's the key too for 2026, just being more intentional on what you're doing in your business, and I have to apply that for myself as well.
Well, and this is not a question on the list. However, to have a business and be a productive citizen, or whatever you're wanting to do, one's physical and mental health has to be, we have to work on that.
Yes.
And so can you share maybe, oh, this is my exercise routine or my yoga meditation routine or anything like that, because that is equally, that's part of the three-legged stool there for success. So
absolutely, especially if you're a parent too.
Yes.
And or I have a partner that he's not a business owner, so he sometimes doesn't get it, or he's like, you're just working from home, and I'm like, no, I don't, stop working.
Why can't you do the laundry and dinner while you're working and doing your forecasting?
Right. And I'm like, I'm kind of working all the time. But I actually just had a show recently, the first show of 2026 with Meredith Rosenbluth, and she's a somatic emotional wellness coach. And somatic comes from soma, which means body. And I do feel like we have disassociated so much. We're out of our body a lot and we're in our mind, because that's what the world has taught us. We're rewarded for working hard, for being burnt out, for achievements, but we're not in tune with our bodies.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely something that you have to learn along the way. But I have learned, being all of these things, I have to have time for me. So I get up before everybody else. I'm a morning person, so I'll get up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock.
Yes, found another.
Yes, I get that from my mom. Thank you, Mommy. I come from early rising women, and so not so much my husband, not so much my son. So that works out because they're more night owls and I'm more early bird. So I'll get up early. I'll have my time, and I'm a private griever or anything. So I like to cry in the shower. I feel like that's a good little, I'll cry in the shower, or I'll pray in the shower. I've added, Dwayne will like this, our producer behind the scenes, I try to work out. I try to get on my treadmill. I'm trying to get 8,000 steps a day because I sit on my butt all the time. I don't always get it. Dwayne is giving me a head bob in the back, but I don't always get it. So I try to do at least a mile in the morning because that'll get me at least 2,000 steps. Then midday, I literally just leave my treadmill in the living room now because I work from home.
Awesome.
So I try to do that. I also try to make sure that I'm an intermittent faster. I know some people like to fast.
That is a great tool.
But I'll drink my water. I'm a tea girl. I'll do that in the morning, and then I'll eat in the afternoon, try to get enough sleep. Now that I'm over 40, it's like if I look at a burger, I'm going to gain 10 pounds. But I also don't feel good. So I'm also kind of a flexitarian. We don't really eat a lot of meat. So I find that if I'm eating bad, I'm not sleeping good, my brain's not going to work. So for me to align my nervous system and all the things, I have to start off my day really kind of in prayer, fasting, working out, kind of clearing my mind. And then from there, I feel like I can tackle anything's going to happen, but I feel more prepared if my mind and my body, I already know what the plan is for the day.
You're in your lifeboat of self-care. That helps you with the stormy waters.
Yes.
That was an excellent answer. It just came to me.
Yes.
So that is great. And when you mentioned early bird, what I recommend to clients a lot for the things they don't like to do in their business, and it could be bookkeeping.
Yeah.
What is their peak energy time, and do it. What's the peak physical, mental energy time, and do it then.
Yes.
Because you're not going to want to do it when you're tired. So utilizing, if you're a night owl, some people have a burst of energy in the afternoon. I don't know how that happens, but understanding what your peak energy time is and doing the tasks that you don't like to do.
Totally agree.
That is awesome. How can people get in touch with you, Veronica?
Yes, I'm on all platforms, but the easiest is to go to my website, balancevirtually.com. I have information about the Veronica Edwards Show. We have episodes that air every other Thursday on YouTube, on veronicaedwards.buzzsprout.com. I'm on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all that fun stuff. So,
that is awesome. It has been so fun. A huge thank you.
This
has been delightful to get to know you better. And again, Veronica has a series of workshops that are coming up in just a few weeks. You can go to abtech.edu/SBC, select seminars, and you can sign up for those workshops, which will be in person here at AB Tech Inca. So for more inspiring stories and resources to help your business thrive, please subscribe to the SBC TV at AB Tech on YouTube and follow AB Tech on social media. And again, thank you, producer Dwayne Adams, for this. And until next time, so thanks a lot.